One of the experiences I trust every homebrewer shares is the feeling of awe that comes from witnessing the conversion of wort into beer through the fermentation process. Even after 15 years, I still get giddy when I see the first signs of airlock activity, a nice fluffy kreuzen developing on top of my beer. The worst is when this takes too long. You all know the anxiety that comes from checking on a batch a day after pitching and seeing no action. This is why we love Imperial Yeast, who pack 200 billion cells of the purest yeast into each pitch-right pouch, which assures quick starts, healthy fermentation, and predictably great results. I strongly urge all of our listeners to check out everything Imperial Yeast has to offer and let them know that you appreciate their support of the Brülosophy Podcast while you're at it. All right, on to the show. I started brewing the year I turned 21, which is the legal drinking age here in the United States. Of course, like many, perhaps even most people, I started drinking years before as a bumbly teenager, curious to see what it was all about. I've since developed what I feel is a pretty healthy relationship with alcohol, though having children has certainly forced me to consider things on a deeper level. This is the Brülosophy Podcast. I'm your host, Marshall Schott, and I'm excited to bring you the very first episode of our new Brews Views series. Joining me to talk about our thoughts on brewing and drinking as parents whose children are often around is contributor Malcolm Frazer.
Hey, yeah, they're upstairs now, so we'll see if I get interrupted.
I know, mine are watching a movie on the couch right now because mom had to go shopping. So
right on.
If I were to compile all of the non-beer or brewing related questions that I've received since starting Brülosophy, topping the list easily would be those that have to do not only with how I manage Brülosophy, what with all the brewing and the writing and editing and such, but those having to do with alcohol being present around my kids, and it is constantly present around my kids. I think it's a really interesting topic. Potentially one that we might have some controversial perspectives on. And I think it's going to make for a good start to this Brews Views series. Now, just a bit on our plans for this series, since it is the first episode in this series. Longtime readers may recall a short-lived series we did over at Brülosophy.com with the same name. It didn't really work out that well over there, but I think the podcast format suits it much better. The plan here is to openly discuss specific topics in depth, with each person sharing their unabashedly honest views in an unfiltered, uncensored way. I say this only because I know we have some listeners who are sensitive to certain language, so this may not be the series for you. Or if you're concerned about what your kids hear, you may want to wait until they're not around to listen to these episodes. Again, fair warning: we are adults who will likely be using a bit more colorful adult language in this series than we typically do. Not saying that we're going to be crude or anything like that. Just something we want to be able to have a show where we get to talk, speak our minds, and that's this. So, all right, if you enjoy the show and would like to make sure it sticks around for a while, there are a few things you can do to help, such as becoming a patron over at patreon.com/Brülosophy. By making a small monthly pledge, you'll receive rewards like access to unpublished contributor recipes, unique discounts at Yakima Valley Hops, and an invite to a monthly live Q&A session with somebody in the brewing world. Coming up next month is host of the late edition from Yakima Valley Hops, Caleb Schwecke, who knows more about hops than most people I know. Super cool dude who I'm really excited to have on. Past guests have included folks like John Kimmich, Stan Hieronymus, Michael Tonsmeyer, and all past sessions are available on our private Facebook page for patrons to watch whenever they like. Learn more about becoming a patron over at patreon.com/Brülosophy. And if you wouldn't mind letting us know what you think about this show overall by leaving a rating and a review in the Apple Podcasts or wherever it is you listen to podcasts, we'd really appreciate that. All right, feedback this week is brought to you by Brewers Hardware, who offer brewers gorgeous stainless gear such as the turnkey BH15 pilot brewing system, which has a hard plumb manifold to eliminate all hosing changes during the brew process. Brewers Hardware has a ton of unique purpose-built products useful to both professionals and homebrewers. Go see for yourself at brewershardware.com, and don't forget to mention Brülosophy at checkout to receive a free gift. That's brewershardware.com. Chris Jewell, who lives in Cologne but works in Dusseldorf, Germany, wrote in with some feedback on our recent Short and Shoddy Kolsch episode. He said, I left work to drive home after a pretty crappy day, and what should grace my ears than the Short and Shoddy Kolsch recipe or Kolsch episode? As a homebrewer, homebrewing craft beer loving Brit living in the land of Kolsch, I thought you might be interested in my 2 cents. Malcolm, you're gonna love this. I got a lot of feedback about some comments that I made on that show. First one, he says, Kolsch served in bars here normally has a lower carbonation than bottles and cans and is often served by gravity and not pressure. I prefer this as it makes it even more smashable. Is that something you were aware of? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they have those kegs where in some places, they're very busy establishments, they can actually just open that tap and pretty much swirl or move the crons, the wreath, in a circle as it fills, because they move in pretty high volume.
Sure,
so,
I bet.
Yeah. As far as the prickliness and stuff like that, I don't know. I would have assumed they, adjusted for that, but
Yeah.
I have not actually had Kolsch in Cologne.
Yeah, likewise.
I've had Kolsch in places that have like a Kolsch night, like they're like German establishments.
Sure.
And I've been to western parts of Germany that are serving Kolsch, like as like an add-on, like a feature.
Yeah.
But it wasn't actually in Cologne.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I have not been privy to the ceremony, but so I don't really know. I've just heard stories.
He's got some more fun info here. He says Kolsch is ubiquitous here. Some bars or restaurants have literally one beer and that's it, and everywhere has a Kolsch. And then he says, I've tried to get a malt bill from the few breweries that do tours, but the most I could get is a vague mention of Pils malt and wheat. For people brewing at home, Cologne water is very hard and high in carbonates, but I think most breweries take from a well or boil and cool to reduce carbonates. That makes sense to me.
A lot of breweries filter their water, not just filter, but use ion exchange or RO.
Yeah, sure.
They don't talk about it, but they have hard water, but they actually use an RO and add minerals back.
Right. The problem with trying to match a regional profile, right?
Yeah.
The final thing, and this is what I heard the most feedback on from this episode. Chris says, you mentioned the beer coaster on the glass. This is actually a sign to stop getting beer. If you don't do this, they're going to keep bringing you fresh, golden, tasty Kolsch. I actually realized my mistake with the whole coaster thing. I had said in the show that when you put the coaster on, that means you want another one.
You're killing me.
I know, dude. Here's the thing. Mistakes are made, and I'm not going to go and scrub it because I feel like that's unfair. No excuse, but I was a little bit hungover, and we were recording fairly early on a Saturday morning. So yeah, coaster on the glass doesn't mean you want more. It means stop serving me tasty golden Kolsch.
Yeah, my first intro to that was in eastern part of Switzerland, and it was a German-like establishment, and they did serve Kolsch predominantly, but they had other beers as well. But yeah, man, they were serving beer in the Stanga or the Stange, and absolutely give me feedback on how I mispronounced that.
Well, I'll tell you what. That's another email I got from somebody. He said you're pronouncing.
Go for it.
He said you're pronouncing it like a French person, stanche. That's what I thought it was. It's stanga. So.
Stanga, but it's real soft. When you hear it, because I was asking the Germans who are here in town right now at Fatheads, they're from Braucon. When they say it, it's not quite as hard as stanga. It's just it's hard to replicate with English ears, American ears.
Well, I appreciate the feedback, Chris. If you have show feedback, you can send it to feedback@brulosophy.com. Leave us a voice message by calling 951-444-0320. You can drop us a note on social media. Now, I'm not sure if it's driven more by curiosity or boredom, but brewers do some pretty weird things with their beer, tossing in adjuncts that on the surface just don't seem to fit. Such is the case with a beer sent to me by listeners Adam and Casey from Fort Bragg, North Carolina. They sent me a raisinette porter that they brewed with lactose, cacao nibs, and of course, raisinettes.
1 minute beer review with Jersey and Tim.
Ooh. You don't like it. I can tell you don't like it.
I really don't.
It's dark.
It's very dark.
Darker than a black steer's tuchus on a cloudy prairie night.
It's kind of a barley wine-ish.
Oh, we know better than to do that.
Imperial stoutish. That's what I meant.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. No,
it is.
No, it's not.
Tell me what it is.
But if I knew. Never mind.
It is.
No, it's not. It's not a stout. It's cleaner. It's cleaner than a stout.
It's a stout.
I mean, it could be a stout.
It is.
No, you just saying that because there's only 3 types of beer we know to apply to dark beer like this.
I'm saying it because I know what the fuck
Well,
I'm
whatever it is,
about.
it's clean and I like it. It's clean.
I do like it.
The coffee aftertaste. You agree with that?
Yeah, a little cocoa-ish.
Cocoa coffee, same deal. Yeah. Like there's not a lot going on, and we like that.
Yeah.
I like this.
If it's not an Imperial stout.
Would you stop saying
I said
Imperial?
if it's
Just say fucking
not.
stout.
right,
The Imperial just. It wedges us into a corner. Just say stout.
It's not a stout. It's
Do you
got
even
the, it's
you
got
know
the
what
cocoa.
what does imperial mean? No, you don't know.
I do
Stop
know.
wedging us
I've
into
seen the
corners.
commercials.
No, you don't know shit.
It definitely has cocoa.
Okay, but I don't think it's a stout.
Maybe it's.
I don't think it's a stout.
Maybe it's made with the cereal.
A cereal stout.
Cocoa Puffs.
A cereal stout.
What do you think?
Cocoa Puff chocolate lager.
Count Dracula.
I don't think that's what it is.
It's not, but it's. I don't mind it.
It could be a stout.
That is it.
No, I don't think it's a stout. It's a crisp and clean dark beer with chocolate flavors. I give it, I don't know.
7. For a total of 17.
74, 757. We like it. We give it a we like it.
Well, being on the darker side, I wasn't convinced the guys were going to like this Raisinette Porter, but they seem to take to it, just fine. I know, Tim had to warm up to it a little bit. I agree with them on the chocolate note. That seemed to be the most prominent character to me. I got nothing in the way of raisins, which I'm not sure would have worked with a porter anyways. But overall, it was a perfectly enjoyable beer, better than I expected based on the description. Malcolm, you've brewed with Raisinets, I'm sure, right?
No, I have not. But I actually like the sound of that because I freaking love Raisinets. So
they're nasty.
But no way, get out of here. And not only that, raisins and figs and dark fruit are common, and especially in English porters, and obviously in a lot of Belgian beers, like darker Belgian.
That's what when I think of like those dried
Raisin
dark
yeah.
fruits, I think of Belgian beers. Yeah.
Yeah, so they can get raisins. So the idea of like chocolate in a porter obviously is amazing. And,
yeah, that works.
That works. But raisins, come on, that's awesome. And especially if you harken back to the ancient dark days of homebrew when people used to put raisins in their beer for carbonation.
That's right. Yeah.
Is that before your time?
It's a little before my time, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
I like this. I like this idea of a Raisinette Porter. I want some.
Yeah, Adam and Casey, you did a good job. I'm not a big fan of these weird adulterated beers. Again, there was lactose in it, cacao nibs. He says the hops were all Nelson Sauvin, and then
that's weird. There,
I know, but it worked. I mean, you didn't taste it. It didn't have that Nelson white wine character. And then he used Y Yeast 1084, so that Irish ale yeast. It worked out really well. He said
send me one.
He said it took a gold medal at the DC Cherry Blossom competition. So
send me two.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for sending that in. If you'd like to have your beer or any other fermented beverage reviewed by Jersey and Tim on the show, you can email me at marshall@brülosophy.com, and we'll get you all set up. When we're back from this break, we'll be sharing our views on brewing and drinking with kids. So I've been hanging out with brewers and craft beer nerds for a long time now, and while we do occasionally have our differences, one thing it seems we all share is a love of learning and trying new things, as well as saving a couple of bucks. Well, right now, Craft Beer and Brewing is helping fans of Brülosophy learn more while saving some coin by offering 20% off the price of a subscription to their awesome magazine. Chock full of brewing insights, tips, and recipes from industry experts, Craft Beer and Brewing is seriously great. I read every issue page to page myself. To get 20% off your subscription, all you have to do is sign up at beerandbrewing.com/Brülosophy.
Just as the Grainfather all-in-one brewing system revolutionized all-grain brewing at home, the Grainfather conical fermenter and glycol chiller take this one step further by giving homebrewers state-of-the-art temperature-controlled fermentation, just like commercial breweries use. With a full array of features including insulated double-walled construction, an innovative dual-valve yeast dump and sampling tap, and an integrated heating element and temperature controller, the conical fermenter provides a professional quality fermenting environment for superior temperature control. With the ability to individually power and control the temperature of up to 4 Grainfather conical fermenters, each with their own fermenting schedule, the Grainfather Glycol Chiller is the perfect addition to ensure superior fermenting results. And for a limited time, you can save 10% on your order by going to grainfather.com and entering coupon code NZB during checkout. Once again, enter coupon code NZB when you order the Grainfather conical fermenter or Glycol Chiller at grainfather.com. Once again, that's grainfather.com.
When dumping wort-soaked grain and leftover low-gravity wort while cleaning up after a brew day, do you ever wonder what your true efficiency would be if that wort made its way to the kettle instead? Using the brew bag, a fabric filter for all mash tuns and brewing methods, allows you to capture every last drop of wort. Not only does this increase kettle efficiency, it lowers your grain bill, which saves you money. Throwing wort in the trash is like dumping a 12-pack down the drain and just doesn't make sense. Use the brew bag and leave no wort behind. I've been using these filters for a long time and recommend them to everyone. I never have to worry about a stuck sparge and cleanup is fast and easy. Go grab yourself a Brewbag fabric filter at brewinabag.com and be sure to use code TBP17 at checkout to get a discount on your order. So my first kid was born when I was 28 years old, which is 7 years after I started brewing and drinking legally. And I've since added 2 more little rugrats to the mix. My youngest is now 6 years old, so I've got some padding there. This definitely caused me to reevaluate my values regarding alcohol and children. I guess the place to start would be the best place to start maybe by sharing a little bit of my background. And I tend to be kind of an open book with self-disclosure and whatnot. So I don't know how deep this is going to go, but just to give a little bit of a background, because I do think that informs our perspectives on this kind of stuff. I was born here in Fresno, and I was about 2 years old. My mom and my dad divorced. The stories that I got prior to me being born about my mom and my dad was basically that they're in the biker crowd, and they cocaine was popular and all those drugs and whatnot. And up until I was about 11 years old, substances were just kind of a normal occurrence in my household. And I remember thinking even back then that that's not how I wanted to live my life. So it was one of those things where, I saw this thing all the time. We weren't living in a real nice part of town, nothing like that. And so I started to develop kind of ideas about it early on. When I was 11 years old, shit kind of hit the fan with my mom, and my siblings and I ended up moving up to Seattle to live with our aunt and uncle. We were supposed to stay for the summer. We ended up just kind of staying forever. And then, up there, we were hit with a lot more structure. We lived in a really nice neighborhood. I mean, it was a complete culture shock. And at 11 years old, that's kind of a formative age. At that point, the substances were just absent. My aunt and uncle, very religious. They got us going to church. And so that really had an impact on our perspectives, or my perspective specifically. Throughout junior high and high school, I experimented a little bit with alcohol and weed. Nothing crazy, I wouldn't think, but I eventually ended up kind of adopting the religious ways of my aunt and uncle, and met the woman who's now my wife. And all of that, again, influenced my perspectives on alcohol. In during my sophomore year of college, I was at a private religious school. My girlfriend and I, the girlfriend is now my wife, we realized our perspectives on life and religion and all that were changing. We decided to transfer to a public school in Bellingham, Washington, and kind of ditched our old belief systems. And then I turned 21 and started brewing out of the blue. I feel like it was one of those weird things. Everyone's heard the story that I've told about working at a group home, and the guy I was supposed to be working with walking in 15 minutes late because he was bottling his homebrew. And that's kind of how I was introduced to homebrewing. But all of that played a role in the perspectives that I now have, I think, on drinking and I guess brewing with kids. Malcolm, before we really start getting into our views on this, do you want to share a little bit about your background? Or?
My childhood was typical. Summers in Rangoon, luge lessons. In the spring, we'd make meat helmets, and when I was insolent, I was placed in a burlap bag and beaten with reeds. Pretty standard, really.
Oh,
at the age of 12, I received my first scribe, and at the age of 14, a Zoroastrian named Velma ritualistically shaved my testicles.
Where the fuck are you taking this?
We've talked about it before. I was born in England to an English father. My mom was raised in England, but she's American by birth. We came over here when I was very young, but the English stylings, traditions, a lot of the culture came over. And then I would go back. One of the things when they moved over here, my father asked my mom is if I could go back occasionally to be part of England on occasion. So I'd go over on a couple summers and work at my aunt and uncle's pub in Shepherd's Bush. So alcohol was pretty prevalent in my life. My father drank, and it was not uncommon for us to have alcohol provided to us. We couldn't get sloshed, but some wine or a taste of beer, was no big deal. When I went over to England, I forget what the legal drinking age is because I just don't give a shit. But pretty much if you could ask for a beer and looked reasonably old, you could get served alcohol.
Yeah,
as long
right.
as you weren't a shit, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't know, but I assume that is part of the reason why when other kids were getting absolutely ripped in high school, I would occasionally have a beer or two. That could be complete conjecture, but it's like part of my whole upbringing was pretty much just chill. You know, they would swear. I mean, we wouldn't be dropping the C word and the F bombs left and right, but it just wasn't that big of a deal. And we talked about sex. We talked about taboo subjects. It was a pretty open household, and I'm so thankful for it because my mom and dad. My dad was a bit old-fashioned. He had some views that I wouldn't share, you know, but he's a man of the 50s, right?
Yeah.
But my mom was pretty much just like, you know, that's your gay Uncle Ray. You know, these are our neighbors, and this is their life. You know, we would talk about our neighbors 4 doors up that used to bathe in the they had like a hot tub, and they'd go out and do nude. And my mom thought it was a hoot. You know, she wouldn't like shield our eyes from it. We'd just kind of have a laugh about it.
Yeah,
you know?
right.
Just very, in my mind, and from what I know, very European, very open, very sex isn't taboo. Talking about bodily functions and fluids, it was no big deal.
Yeah,
in our house,
I feel like that's a huge issue. And it's funny because you would think that you know, prior to my move up to Seattle, there was I remember I think I was 6 or 7 years old, and Budweiser at the time had released their little miniature bottles, those small bottles of beer, and it was my stepdad's
kid size.
Kid size, exactly. It was my stepdad's birthday. I mean, this is kind of fucked up. I mean, if you think about it, it's my stepdad's birthday, and for his birthday, my mom told my brother and me, we're twins, so we're 6, 7 years old, that we could have one of those small kid-sized bottles of Budweiser. Like, that's just weird shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not like we were begging for it. I always did like the taste, and up until that point, you know, it was always cool if I'd take a sip of his of whatever beer was sitting on the table. My mom wasn't crazy about that or anything. But what's kind of odd to me is it was only once I moved up to Seattle where it was hyper structured. I mean, rules. I needed that. You know, I needed that at that time in my life. But you had the rules, you had the religious influence, you had all of that. Where I really started to feel like, in an odd way, that my I guess my ability to view this thing as not being weird started to happen, because my aunt and uncle would occasionally, you know, my uncle would go and buy like a 6-pack of Heineken, and he'd have one at a barbecue, and then the 5 would be sitting in the back of the fridge for the next 6 months. You know, that was just how it was. And what's funny is nowadays, now that all the kids are out of the house, you know, they drink much more regularly and are out doing stuff. And so there's just that influence. And the truth is the friends that I know who just hit the wall, right, would drink all the time and were partying all the time. Again, this is anecdotal, but there definitely seemed to be a correlation between the restrictiveness of their parents, you know, and and they, some of those people, and I don't mean to talk shit on my old friends or anything.
Fuck them.
Fuck them. But they're still out there, you know, living kind of that lifestyle. Whereas I had more of this, my aunt and uncle, religious as they were really kind of open-minded, and same thing, really, really open to talking about various topics and not in a very non-judgmental way. And I feel like that helped me out, helped me to kind of, even after I left the religion that they're still a part of, it really did help me to kind of build my value system when it comes to alcohol and my kids. So to me, there's definitely influence from my past, even though I've kind of jumped ship in terms of certain belief, filters or whatever. That I feel like it still kind of is influencing the way that I view it. Now, here's the deal. I'm just going to come out. I get a little bit anxious when I talk about my opinions. That's, science doesn't care about opinions. And so when I talk about them, like, hey, I'm not trying to tell anybody how they should think. And I don't want people to think that I'm judging them if they're different than me.
That's me. I'm judging.
Yeah. You are a judger. You Malcolm, you English jerk.
Marshall's still a psychiatrist way deep down. So he's like, no, it's fine. Please express your views too. I'm like, you are fucked up.
Like you go on the Donahue show or something.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. God, I can't. we make a point sometimes of posting photos of our kids helping us brew experiment beers. You've done it, Malcolm. I've done it. Jake has done it. It's just a part of our normal life. And it's amazing the kickback that we've received from some of those privately. Why are you involving your kids in the alcohol making process? That's an adult thing. I don't fucking care, man. I want them to be a part of it. And so there's, we'll talk a little bit more about brewing later. I was trying to think about the best way to approach this topic, and I can't. There's two main things. There's the drinking piece of it, but then there's also the brewing and all of the stuff that goes into that. I figure what we'll focus on first is this drinking component. I don't think that it's healthy to hide shit from our kids. That is just something through my studying in psychology and through my own personal experience. When we do that, kids are smarter than we give them credit for. They notice shit more than we do. As we get older, we learn to ignore stuff better. Kids don't have that ability yet. They notice everything, even if they don't say it. So if I'm sitting around trying to hide the fact that, I'm making and drinking with my friends and whatever that may be, I feel like they're going to notice that, and they're going to build something on the fact that I'm hiding something from them that's far worse than them just noticing that I might be drinking.
Yeah, so I'm along with that quote, and I actually just saw it the other day because I finally watched Bohemian Rhapsody, and the guy says something like, "It's America. They're Puritans in public and perverts in private," right? So we're humans, right? We're these social apes, and we have animal drive, animal instincts, and animal brains, a lot of it. And so we're all doing the same shit, people, and then we pretend we're not. So
right.
America still does this. That movie was based in probably the 70s to 80s, right? Because I think Live Aid was 85. So that movie is in the 70s and 80s, and here we are in 2019, and we're still Puritans. By and large, we're still Puritans.
It is impossible to separate the stigma of alcohol from that puritanical religious influence. I think
it's alcohol and sex; they're related.
Well,
it's like it's sin. It's sin. This sin mentality, and alcohol is a sin, and sex is a sin. So it's like taboo. Keep it away from children.
Yeah,
and I'm sure you could Googleize studies to show each side of the argument, whether early exposure to sex or alcohol influences later, quote, deviant behavior, or it makes them less susceptible to it.
I know.
Both of us are giving our opinion on how we think that perhaps the BLD and the exposure to alcohol makes it so we're not crazy right now.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's studies out there that would contradict that.
Well, there's definitely I can't speak specifically to alcohol, but there's definitely some good evidence to support that this whole idea of forbidden fruit, right? The more you tell somebody not to do something, the more likely they are to want to do it. All of a sudden, it becomes more enticing or more interesting. What am I missing out on? Perhaps I don't think it's totally conscious, but we all experience that. I think on a really deep, subconscious level, is wanting to try these things that people are saying don't do, especially when you're looking out and when people do it, they seem to have a really good fucking time.
Well, all I know is that in our house, because I brew with my kids, if either one of my daughters asks to try something, she can try it. And now little guy, my youngest, he's like, he's big into the Me Too movement. Pretty much anything that his sisters want to do, he says Me Too.
Of course.
Not to marginalize the actual Me Too movement before I start getting hate letters.
Yeah.
But Malcolm, if he sees Molly say, "I want to try that beer," I give it Molly have a sip. No sooner do I put the glass down or the can down, and Malcolm's, "Me too.
Me too.
I want to try it too."
Oh, so get this. So probably we've been around for 5 years now. And so in the first year, so it must have been 4 years ago or so, I posted something to the website. I don't even know if it was like a full-fledged article or if it was just some sort of me rambling on about something. And in that article was a linked image. I don't think I put the image in the actual article. I think it was like you had to click a hyperlinked text and it went to this picture of one of my kids with a small little glass of beer, right?
Oh my God.
Holy shit, the storm that came my way, right? And I ended up taking it down, which it's hard to change me from stuff like that. But I consulted with my wife. What happened was a few people, I'll never forget, one of the people was from Texas, so I don't know what their laws are. His response was, you better be careful. Somebody might call CPS on you for child abuse or child endangerment.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what I would do? I don't have the revised code. That's bullshit. I do. Ohio code is 4301.69 Bravo. That's right. Can't stop being who you are.
That's right.
So in Ohio, you can actually give your kids alcohol. There's other states, we talked about this a little bit. In other states, you can do it too.
It's legal in California if you're in your house with a parent or something like that. Yeah.
You can give your kids. You can't give other people's kids.
That's right.
You can give your kids alcohol. In Ohio, you can actually, if the bar allows it, mind you, the bar has the right to have their policy be what it is. So if the establishment, a restaurant or a bar, a brewery, people. Yes, kids are allowed in breweries.
That's
suck
right.
it.
I know. Suck it, dude. God, get over yourselves.
But don't go to that brewery. So you can allow your kid to be served in Ohio. That was a clumsy way to get there. But the place can say we don't allow that.
Well,
right?
and I think when we're talking about, this is a big issue. When you're talking about letting kids sample alcoholic beverages, I'm more than open to doing that. And here's a little piece of anecdote. So Hazel is my oldest. She's 10 years old. She turned 10 in May. I've got an almost 9-year-old, Roscoe, and then I've got Olive, who just turned 6 on the 4th of July. So when Hazel was, I believe, about 4 years old, she would come out and she would want to sample some beer or some cider that I made and whatnot. Or I might be drinking a really nice Firestone Walker beer or something like that. And she'd ask for a sample. And I have no issue doing that. The look on friends' faces when they first saw me doing that it's kind of interesting. And then they would ask me about it. And my typical response was, if I make this thing forbidden, if I worry about one component that makes up about 5% of this beverage, and that's the reason that I restrict her from even sampling it, what is that going to do for her in the end when she's an adult, or when she's getting closer to adulthood and has friends who are sneaking around because their parents hid it from them? I want them to be familiar with it, or I want alcohol to be familiar to them. And that's my way of doing it. We talk about responsible drinking. It's not an issue for us. It's not an awkward conversation in my household to talk about that. They know that when all the adults and the whole neighborhood gets together and hang out, we're going to probably get a little buzzed and have a good time and sing karaoke. And they enjoy that. What they also know is that mom and dad aren't going to get behind the wheel of a car after they're done drinking. We're probably not going to go anywhere. We're just going to hang out in our neighborhood, and when they are sampling these beers, they get literally 2 or 3 ounces, maybe once a week at max. It's not like they're drinking pint after pint of beer in my house.
Molly's 6, so I don't let her drink much more than a beer or two because she has to drive home. So
her Fisher Price car.
So, but same thing when we give the kids a sip. It started off with finger in the foam of the beer.
Oh yeah.
And for a little while, they actually liked it, and they would ask for more or whatever. Molly's going through the phase now where she doesn't really she thinks it's gross.
Yeah, Yeah, that's where Hazel and Roscoe are now as well.
Yeah.
They have zero interest in even sampling it. Hazel will try my berry cider. She likes that.
Yeah, and the wine. We had wine the other day, and we don't drink wine very often. Kim sometimes has wine at night, but usually the kids are in bed, but not always. So we had wine a couple days ago, and they wanted to try it, and we let them have that. And they asked for another sip because it was a sweeter wine.
Yeah.
So we gave them another small sip. And then they asked for it again, and that's when the boundaries go up. It's like, okay, this is an adult drink. You got to try it. We're done.
Wobble your ass to bed now.
Yeah. So they get to try it. They get to experience it. And my kids, they cook with me. I think there's a lot of correlation or overlap here between being able to try and sense stuff. Like my kids will eat hot sauce, and my kids eat sushi and all these other, foods that a lot of other kids won't eat.
Yeah, adult foods, yeah.
Adult foods. You can try it, and if they ask for a hot sauce, I'll say, hey, this is really hot,
Yeah.
Why don't you take a little tiny bit of it? So they'll put their pinky in it and try it. Go, ooh, that's hot. Well, now you know.
Yeah.
So same thing with alcohol. You can try it, and then after a sip or two, you're done.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's what I was saying earlier is Hazel, when she was 5 or 6, she was into it. She'd come out and she'd ask for beer. She would drink it. Roscoe, he was into it around the same age. They've both have developed a complete lack of interest in beer.
Yep.
And it makes sense to me. Olive has not. Olive still loves to drink beer with Dad. In fact, she asks me probably 1 or 2 times a day, Dad, can I have a beer today? And and here's it's cute as shit, I think. But here's the thing: is when she's asking for that, she's not asking for a can of Miller Lite. She knows those are Daddy's beers. She literally, I have this tiny little sampler glass that I got at a brewery in Manhattan, and it's this tiny little 3 ounce. It looks like a tiny shrunken down version of a beer mug. And that's what she gets. She gets it half full. So she's maybe 2 ounces max of beer.
I think the fact that your kid has a beer glass,
yeah, dude,
is
it's
hilarious.
Well, she's fucking her dad's the Brülosopher, man. What do you know? And she
that's beyond where we are, dude. Our kids don't have beer glasses.
But it's not her fucking beer glass, dude. It's one of my sample glasses.
You tell your story your way. In my head, it's her beer glass.
It's the one that she prefers, and the reason I like her to use that one is because she can put her finger in and not drop the glass. But that's the thing.
New by Fisher Price.
It is pretty humorous, and I've got a lot of pictures on my phone of her sipping out of this beer glass. But of course, I can't share those because the puritanical weirdos out there. That's and again, I'm not trying to be judgmental, but
they all know now, Marshall.
Let me do what I want with my kids.
They all know now.
They all know now. I know, Jesus Christ. But one of the things that we'll talk about, same thing with you and the wine with your kids, is Olive will finish her little glass and she'll say, "Can I have more, Daddy?" And my response is, "You had your one. We're not going to have any for a while now, But what'd you think?" And that's another thing we talk about it. What flavors did you pick up? Did you smell anything interesting? We geek out over it, and I feel like maybe that's a terrible, horrible thing in the eyes of some. I feel like it's an actual really positive thing. For our relationship to be able to kind of share that, and she feels a little bit more mature, when she's sitting with Dad in the garage having her mug of beer.
yeah. My daughter Kira, she's the kind of the crazier one. She asked to have a beer, and then she asked to go outside and ride her bike, and I let her. And then I pulled her over and took away her bike for 4 weeks just to show her. Just to enforce, just to set them up for life.
Yeah, that'll show you.
Yeah. DUI. You got BUI here, kid. Biking under the influence.
That's right. You chill out. Well, and that's, I think about the first time I ever got shit-faced. I believe I was 13 years old. A friend of mine had an older brother who had a fake ID and went out and he walked up. I lived at the very top of the hill in my neighborhood, and my buddy Mark, and in fact, he's the one who's responsible for most of the music in this show in the Brülosophy podcast. He brought up a backpack full of Bud Ice. Do you remember that stuff?
Yeah. I just vomited a little in my mouth.
Oh my God, dude! I vomited that day. Trust me. He brought it up to my garage. I was fairly unacquainted with alcohol in general at this point, and him, and another friend Justin just sat there and drank can after can after can. And I remember thinking, is this what it's all about? Is this what adults do? And I fear, I ended up standing up. It all rushed to my head. I fumbled up the stairs. I puked 3 times in the shower. It was not a good day. Thankfully, I never got caught as a kid. I've since told this story to my aunt and uncle, so we're good. But I like to think that my kids will be the ones who are going, you want to just sit and chug can after can of Bud Ice? I've got 7 taps of good beer at my house, I don't know.
That's an important topic right there. Do you introduce your kids to alcohol before you introduce them to karaoke? Because at that point...
Very good point, yeah.
Because they're like, why are we chugging beer here?
Yeah.
The other kid would chime in and be like, because we're about to sing Mamma Mia.
Yeah. Oh, my kids are already well introduced to karaoke. They do that often, so...
Yeah, I don't... even though I said... I didn't do the crazy drinking stuff, which, by and large, I wasn't the guy drinking, shotgunning beers or bottle throttling beers, stuff like that. But because you're a kid and you succumb to peer pressure, one time, me and a friend, I think it was Bud Ice too. It was either Molson Ice or Bud Ice. It was one of those,
Or
might have been
Mickey's or
Ice
something
House.
like that,
No,
yeah.
it's Ice House. It was Ice House.
Oh God!
But
yeah.
we had it in a backpack. Someone got it for us, and we were drinking up in his room because he had like a room on the third floor, and we thought we were being snaky by leaving him outside on the roof because you could like reach out of his window and put him on the roof.
Yeah.
But I don't know, for whatever reason, mom's radar went up and she came up and caught us.
Oh boy.
We must have been too quiet or something,
God.
But she caught us and we got in trouble, and she was surprised that I did that because I was usually the more responsible one. And I was thinking, like, this isn't even good beer. Why were we doing that?
Exactly.
It was curiosity. But I had access to beer, but I think we were pretty young. I think we were probably, I'm guessing, 13, whatever. Because when I was in high school, it was not uncommon for me to just be able to ask my dad for a beer,
And that's the thing. I see. I sort of hope my kids. I want my kids to feel comfortable talking about it with me and having a genuine interest in it. My hope is that by my involvement in brewing, that they have kind of a different start, I guess, kind of starting perspective as a lot of the other kids out there. I also don't want to be the dad though who's encouraging them to go party and fuck around and get shit faced all the time. They're not going to be coming over here and drinking off my taps when they're under 21 years old.
Yeah, my father would get mad at me if he found out I drove home, or if I was in a car with someone who was drinking.
Yeah, of course.
Then all hell would break loose.
Oh fuck yeah, dude. But I'm also saying, like, we all know those parents who kind of the laissez-faire. They kind of turn a blind eye to their kids' unwholesome behavior, if you will. And I don't want to. It's not just because I'm sitting here saying I'm okay with my kids sampling some of the beer that I make or a really good beer that I pick up from the store. That doesn't mean I'm going to be the parent who's like, yeah, you guys can come over here when you're 16.
Party over here? No
exactly.
way.
No,
way.
Screw that.
You can't make that decision for other people's kids anyways.
That's one big thing, but I'm also not going to make that decision for my kids. Screw that. I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah. No, well, like if my neighbor or whatever, had teenage kids or whatever, and if he wanted to come over and have a beer, he can have a beer in my house with his kids in my house. I wouldn't care about that.
No, not at all.
But no unsupervised parties or anything like that.
Of course
no
not.
way.
Yeah.
I mean, my kids are 6. My oldest kid's 6, so I want to say I'm years away from that, but you never know.
Yeah.
That could be 5, 8 years away.
Yeah.
But yeah. The liability, it's just, and I'm in the alcohol industry now, so I can't have any alcohol incidents on my record. There's no way. So.
No, and I guess before we head to a short break here, just to kind of summarize my views on the drinking component with kids, I truly do, and people can think what they want, say what they want. I truly do feel like their exposure because of my wife and me and our friends and the way that we've done it. I have to believe that it's at least marginally better or more beneficial to them than the opposite, which is to pretend, that we're not enjoying life by consuming alcohol every once in a while or trying to hide it from them. So that's where I'm at. I'm okay with them taking samples if they want samples, but I'm also very, very, I guess, anal about them. They're not going to overdo it. They're going to be responsible about it. And that's my goal is in all of this is to, I guess, kind of I encourage a more responsible perspective of alcohol.
So you're kind of hoping it's almost like a vaccine.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah.
Which don't work anyways. You're giving your kids autism.
Yeah. Oh, God. Yeah. You're gonna get
I know. I'm trying to poke people in the eye.
Yeah.
But the shitty thing is kids are kids, and no matter what you do right, your kid can end up being, he or she could have a propensity towards alcoholism anyways.
If that's a real thing. I mean, we'll have to do a whole show on alcoholism in general.
But what I'm saying is, like, we think we're doing the right thing, right? I mean,
sure, we wouldn't be doing it if we didn't.
In this instance, we're kind of aligned. We give our kids some minor exposure to alcohol, a weakened strain that doesn't truly infect them.
That's right. Sounds like homeopathy, really.
Yeah. We give them a little bit of exposure now. We talk about it. They see mom and dad drinking, and mom and dad's friends drinking, in hopes to make it a social norm and
less taboo. Yeah.
Less taboo and have some maturity.
Absolutely.
They see it being used in a controlled, responsible environment and acting decent despite drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
So their first exposure isn't, at a party with kids getting crushed.
Exactly.
Absolutely slammed. But in the end, nature versus nurture, who knows? Who knows if that's going to help them?
Yeah,
I just don't know.
It's only time will tell, right? Only time will tell. Well, those are our thoughts on drinking alcohol around kids. When we're back from this short break, we're going to shift our focus to how we manage making alcohol ourselves as fathers. Have you ever thought about adding a port to your kettle but held off because you didn't feel like drilling into your gear or sending it off to have someone else do it? From the makers of the super fast counterflow chiller, the Exchillerator, comes the Hangover, the easiest way to add extra ports to your kettle as well as countless other options. Mount a faucet to your keg for easy portable pouring. Set up the perfect whirlpool arm. Hold a heating element in place. All of this and so much more without permanently modifying your gear. Manufactured right here in the United States, the Hangover offers brewers too many convenient solutions to list here. So head over to Exchillerator.com today to see what the Hangover can do for you. Family-owned Atlantic Brew Supply is the largest homebrew shop in the Southeast. No gimmicks, no multinational corporate overlords, and no BS. They offer exclusive malts, yeast, and more from local artisans, as well as award-winning recipe kits. They also sell professional brewing gear and cask equipment from sister companies ABS Commercial and Cask Supply. Most ingredients are available by the ounce, plus Atlantic Brew Supply has an on-site calculator to help you craft your best brew. Orders are processed same day, and 2-day shipping is guaranteed for East Coast customers. Get 15% off your first order using promo code BREWPOD. That's BRUPOD at AtlanticBrewSupply.com. After a long brew day, the last thing I want to do is waste more time chilling wort. I've tried so many different options, and ultimately I settled on the super efficient immersion chillers made by Jaded Brewing. With the King Cobra and Hydra, I'm able to chill my entire batch of wort from boiling to just a few degrees above groundwater temperature in as little as 6 minutes. If an immersion chiller is right for your brewery, then do yourself a favor and check out all of the rad options Jaded Brewing has to offer at jadedbrewing.com, and be sure to let them know Brülosophy sent you. As every brewer knows, the best beer requires the best hops, which Yakima Valley Hops provides fresh from the source to brewers around the world, carrying everything from classics like Cascade to modern favorites like Galaxy and Mosaic, as well as other ingredients and gear. Yakima Valley Hops has it all. And don't forget to check out their new podcast, The Late Edition, where the YVH crew goes into depth on our favorite plant with industry experts. Head over to YakimaValleyHops.com now to see all they have to offer, and subscribe to The Late Edition wherever it is you listen to podcasts. Brewing is a fairly time-intensive hobby, one that requires a decent degree of planning, a few hours per brew day, and all of the other investment that comes with producing a tasty batch of beer. For us at Brülosophy, add on data collection, analysis, writing, and editing, and it cuts even deeper into our free time, quote-unquote free time. So how do we manage this while making sure to take care of our families? That's what we're going to talk about in this segment. Malcolm, I know, but you were kind of heavy into brewing and doing all that kind of stuff even prior to your attachment here to Brülosophy, and I know that I have to believe, like most brewers with a family, that it's been an issue that's had to be discussed among you and your other half.
Yeah, when Molly was born, I just kind of looked at her and go, "Daddy drinks," but yes, more or less, it became like I don't golf. Which is 4 to 6 hours, on a weekend. I have a lot of hobbies. I used to hunt quite a bit. I'm really big into cooking, which that's a hobby my wife does not mind.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
And we've parlayed a lot of this stuff into being, family activities. So a couple of my friends started brewing. So when we brewed, we would bring the family, over to other friends' house, and it'd be kind of a social event. So we found ways to work it in, and then we also did some schedule adjustment, like when I would brew, and how I would brew. But it definitely becomes a discussion if you have a partner, and I can imagine even if you don't, if you have a just a family or a social life, are working, friends, it's like brewing becomes your girlfriend.
And I used to say this more often than I do now, but whereas home brewing used to be my hobby, what eventually that morphed into was writing and now I guess talking about home brewing. And I really do spend a lot of time. People don't realize how much time it takes to keep, this thing afloat, to do 2 articles a week and to have an episode, recorded and edited and produced every single week. It's a big time investment. And so I've kind of I get this question all the time. In fact, we all do. How the hell do you do this with 3 kids and a full-time job, right? I've got my full-time job and I've got Brülosophy and I've got my family and we still travel and we still do things. I'm surprised I'm able to make it work sometimes. But again, I figured out a few things that I can do to make it work. And one of those, and probably the most important one, is just I've accepted that I don't need as much sleep as most people do, and so I'll usually wake up really early in the mornings. And back when I was brewing every weekend, as we were starting to build this Brülosophy thing. Back then I would wake up at 4:00 in the morning and I'd figure out ways, I was trying to come up with cool little methods to have my strike water to temp. And so I got a heat stick and, I was doing all of this stuff so that I could reduce the amount of time I spent in my garage when my kids were younger, so that I could come in and basically be done brewing by the time, my wife and my kids are waking up. And that worked out really well for me. As my kids got older, I just kind of like we talked about earlier, I just started involving them in the process. So I'd bring them outside and they'd get to stir the mash. Roscoe still, even though he doesn't like beer, he still asks me to stir the mash, and they get to mill the grain and they get to weigh out the grains and all that stuff. So by doing that, it creates the illusion that I'm not, I guess, being pulled away from the family.
Yeah. So I used to work swing shifts. So there's 2 different strategies. One is time saving, like you said, finding ways to either cut the brew day down, kind of the short and shoddy stuff, but even if it's not short and shoddy, just ways of cutting the brew day down. And then there's also the involvement. So you can either brew away from family time or incorporate family. And when I was doing swing shifts in the nuke world, I would often brew coming in off of second shift. So I would come home at 10:30 at night, and I'm the type of person, when I come home from work, I'm not going to bed right away. So I was like, screw it, I'm just going to brew into the wee hours of the morning. Yeah. So yeah. I would do that for a couple of years there. And when the kids were getting up, I was wrapping up, cleaning up, and going to bed. So the kids get up, give a kiss, whatever. Now, I guess maybe more responsible would have been to come home and crash, but I just tried it for a long time. I couldn't do it. By the time I went to bed, it'd be 2 or 3 in the morning. Yeah. So I was going to sleep late anyways. So the other method was what you talked about. I did the timers with heat sticks to preheat my strike.
Oh, yeah, it's badass, dude. I love it.
And then I would do a lot of my crushing and organization. So I'd have my brew day set up.
Yeah.
So assume this is like a normal Saturday, like a normal 9-to-5 worker would have, is I would do the strike water, have everything set up, everything but the grain crushed, because I just kind of believed for a long time that, I didn't want to crush my grain.
Yeah, that 12 hours stale the grain, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you can do that, but, I was a fanatic. So I'd crush the grain and grip it and rip it. But, I started finding out a lot of things, such as you didn't have to mash for 60 minutes or 90 minutes, especially if you have a recirculation mash. You can probably only mash for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and do you get a bit more efficiency? Perhaps. Do you get a bit more clarity? Perhaps. But I found out that it kind of works its way out down the line. Yeah. Because it's going to clarify, with age, and I wasn't chasing, I was no longer chasing efficiency. I wasn't like one of those big dick swingers when it came, like, I got 98% efficiency, bitches.
Yeah. Me either. Never cared about that.
Yeah. Well, I did it first because it was kind of a challenge, so I wanted to maximize all that stuff. When I started saying I didn't care, I cared more about an extra hour than I did 4% on efficiency, 5% efficiency. So I would just throw another handful of grain in and call it good. But, the time-saving thing for people out there who are trying to cut time away so you're not brewing so long, I found those automatic brewers, like those semi-automated systems.
Like the Grainfather.
Like the Grainfather.
Yeah.
Man, you can kind of do a lot of stuff with well, that thing's over there brewing.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I wasn't. We should probably just do a show talking about most of our transition to electric brewing. I don't know what it is, but boy, does it seem to make for a much smoother brew day. It's so oddly simple now.
Well, it's all incorporated, so it's like all the stuff's there.
Right.
And you kind of go over and check on it and say, "Are you doing your thing?" Okay, you are.
Yeah.
And then you have like you could be doing stuff out in the yard with your kids, and then you come in for 5-10 minutes for that next cycle. You're like, oh yeah, I need to set it up for sparging. You come over and you
Yeah.
So that allows you, it frees you up a lot of time, and I think that could be this. It doesn't have to be Grainfather. I know we keep dropping that name, but there's other systems out there, that are less hands-on. When I used to do all the buckets and the hoses and gravity systems, they're great. I still enjoy brewing that way. That's how I brew most of the time still. Those systems are much more involved. You're kind of like hovering over it.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. But even I'm gonna so this I'm married to a woman. So when I'm referring to my wife, I'm not trying to make fun of wives or anything like that. In fact, I've heard from a couple of female brewers who are married to guys, and they have the same issue. And a part of it is that if I come home from work on a Friday and I wake up on Saturday and I go outside for what traditionally would take 4 to 5 hours to brew a batch of beer, I'm effectively gone more, which leaves my wife in charge of the kids and taking care of all of that stuff. And let's be honest, that's annoying. It'd get on her nerves, and she'd come out and she'd be like, I get that you're brewing, but I'm going to need some help with the kids doing this. I got to run and take care of this and blah, blah, blah. And so one of the,
not even just help though. It's like a break.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. She needs her breaks the same way that brewing, trying to keep it even here. I think, and this is a big question that I've gotten from people over the last few years is like, this is, how many times have you hopped on Facebook and somebody is selling all of their equipment, and the reason is it was just getting too much in the way of family time.
Well, manage that shit.
Yeah. Well, that's
what I don't understand. It's like, what? So you're not going to do anything else? Because
I know.
Just swap out brewing and insert something else.
Exactly. Well,
brew better.
But I think that's where the alcohol component comes into play, is that people are looking, maybe it's the non-beer drinking partner who's looking and saying, okay, fine, you're doing this thing, but it is 100% you. This doesn't involve the kids at all.
Not to make a comment and to generalize here for sure, but I'm doing this for effect. Is that partner is probably going to be in your grill for lots of other stuff.
Potentially.
So it's either you not admitting. So I'm okay if someone generally is just like, I'm taking too much time doing this, I want to change. Good for you, whatever. But if that partner is nagging you, to use that hate, that word puts hair on the back of people's neck sometimes. But if you got a nag partner, this could be a guy or a girl. So back off for a second. If you have a partner who's nagging you about your hobby, maybe it's not the hobby that needs to change.
Yeah. Oh God, Malcolm. So Malcolm's now become a fucking marriage counselor over here.
No, I'm just saying.
I get what you're saying.
Manage your hobby,
but at the same time, let's be real here. Every relationship is built on compromise, and you have to be in the same way that.
So compromise your hobby.
No, but I get that. But what I'm saying is, I understand if I'm a stay-at-home dad. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. This is her job, and she does a really fucking good job at it. Is raising the kids, and she does. She takes care of our home, and she makes all of this work. If I'm in her shoes and when she comes home, her first thing is to go out, drink beer, prep for brewing, spend 5 hours brewing. Yeah, I get it. There's a part of me that can put myself in that position and say, God, are you going to ever not, be busy? Can you just come in and give me a break for a minute?
Well, that is fair. That is compromise.
That's what I'm saying.
Manage your hobby. Now, if your idea of managing it is selling out your shit, cool. I get to buy some stuff cheap. I'm glad that you chose a bad partner. But what I'm saying is, if my wife was like, doing that stuff, now I think we're both also blessed, by the way, because my wife is.
We're very lucky.
Just amazing. Yeah, very lucky. Yeah. I mean, marry well. How about that?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
My advice is to marry someone awesome who has a great family. But if my wife's like, hey, you need to spend less time doing this, my suggestion would be to optimize it, which is I think what we're talking about, right?
Exactly.
Either optimize it or say, yeah, the kids can be with me for 3 or 4 hours of this. I don't want them around when I'm doing a hard boil, because I can't. It depends on your kid. You have to know your kids too, right?
Yeah.
So safety is paramount.
Yeah.
If you burn your kid, you would never forget it, right? So my little brother pulled hot tea on himself when I was a kid, and it's still in my eyes.
Yeah.
It's in my brain. My two girls, even though I jokingly call Kira the wild child, she is, but I could still tell her, don't go over there, I'm boiling.
Yeah.
And I'd kind of always put myself such that I'm between them and the brew kettles, right? Malcolm, my little guy, I could not do it.
He'll jump into the boiling wort. Yeah.
He is crazy. He is, like I said, a parent's job is like 95% trying to stop your kids from killing themselves.
Yeah, no shit. That's the truth. Yeah.
Malcolm is, it's like that bad movie, that Bird Box. Is that what it's called? Bird Box?
I heard about it and haven't seen it.
It's like, there's like some kind of like thing, like ghost, spirit, whatever, that they don't really talk about too much.
Yeah.
But once it gets in you just trying to off yourself. That is like little Malcolm. He is trying to stick things in plugs. Like all those safety devices you see in stores, they were designed because someone came across my son or some version of him.
Yeah.
So I could not do traditional brewing with propane burners with unsteady pots around little Malcolm. I probably could do grain files up on a table.
Sure. Yeah. Like me, I have those, the 1Vs from SS Brewtech, and they're up on a table now. The kids, I mean, the worst thing that could honestly happen is they touch the kettle during the boil and it's just hot, but it won't even, I've done it. It doesn't burn you.
Right.
So
those grain filers, you touch the outside of them, they're kind of like, ouch.
They're warm. Yeah.
Not like I've scarred my hand.
Exactly. But back when I had, on my brew bench, in the garage before I tore that thing out, and I had those two big KAB4 burners, the 12-inch banjo burners.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was definitely rules when you see the flame on, you don't walk in this section of the garage, and you don't touch anything over here. You don't know if it's going to be hot or not,
My buddy had that. He had like a tiled section of his basement, and it was like, you can't go on the tiles when the flames are on.
Yeah. It's basically what I would do. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what, so I brought up my wife, and I think what a lot of people who are partnered experience with their partner who may not be into brewing or beer. Not everyone, some people have like the dual setup where both people love brewing, and that's awesome. But for a lot of us, it's our hobby, not necessarily shared with our spouse or our loved one. One of, I don't think it's far-fetched to say that the big issue with this is doing everything we can to kind of keep our partners happy so that we can keep doing this thing and not make it feel like a task, but keep it feeling like a hobby, like it's a fun, relaxing thing for us. And so a couple of the things that I've done, brewing, I've been known to say that brewing is like 90% waiting. You do this and then you wait for a minute, then you do this and you wait for an hour, and then you do this and you wait another hour. In those wait times, I've got my process so far down. Even if I'm doing a completely traditional 4-hour brew day, there's probably a good 2 hours in there where I'm inside making breakfast for the kids. So I'm still contributing on a level that could effectively, be considered a break for my wife, right? So she doesn't have to prep the kids breakfast. She can sleep in. She can go back and work on something else while I'm still managing the kids, even if they're not necessarily helping me out.
Well, that's exactly it. So like, if you did like the night prep and morning strike water thing, you could get down, start brewing, go make breakfast. Now you're like this hero, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You made breakfast. You mind the kids. Wife gets to sleep in. Our partner gets to sleep in for an hour or two, while you're mashing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So then, partner wakes up, kids are fed, and you're halfway through the brew day.
Yeah, and what I live on a street where the kids can go out as early as they want and ride their bikes, ride their scooters, and so I'll force them outside. I'll lock our garage door into the house, and they'll set them up with a bottle of water and put them on their bikes, and they're out getting exercise at 8:00 in the morning while mom's sleeping in. All well fed and everything.
So, I'm yet to experience this yet too because of my transition this last the year that didn't exist. So moving to Georgia, moving back, whatever.
Yeah.
But I plan on brewing with little Mal, but I talked briefly a couple episodes ago about transitioning to electric.
Yeah.
'Cause I think it is safer around kids, and I can do it more often during the year because here I am in Cleveland where we have 2 seasons, winter and July 4th. So dad jokes aplenty. So I want to do electric brewing, but I'm probably going to do it in the garage still because I want to be able to do what you just talked about, have my kids play out in our neighborhood because we have kind of a sectioned off neighborhood as well.
Yeah.
But what I want to talk about is the incorporation, and we alluded to this earlier, is I have taught my kids about counting, weighing, measuring, and tasting various aspects of this mysterious beverage that's in the glass or can or bottle that mom and dad drink and mom and dad's friends drinks. So they know what hops smell like. And there's a picture, a year or two ago with me brewing with Molly smelling hops.
Yeah.
And every single ingredient that comes out, it's like, my kids, can I smell that? Can I taste that? Can I eat this? I mean, it's like going on a brewery tour with the new person,
Yeah.
and they want to taste the grain. My kids crunch grain. My
Absolutely.
kids smell hops. And I remember a year or two ago when Molly just started learning numbers, so Kira didn't quite know them yet. I just told Molly, hey, weigh these hops out until it says 48 grams, and then show Kira. So I would write down what a 4 looks like, and you kind of have to mimic what the scale, that digital.
Yeah.
What a 4 looks like and what an 8 looks like. And I would tell her, just drop this on there into that scale looks like that. They're learning numbers.
Yeah.
They're learning what measurement is.
And it's applied. It's practical, applied, measurements. Yeah. And my kids do the same thing. They love, my son especially, he's a numbers guy. Like he loves math. And the kid will, if I pull down the scale and my little grain bucket and I say, I'm going to need 9 pounds of they all know how to read. He knows math, all that stuff. So I'll say I need 9 pounds of pale malt and, half a pound of C60 or something.
Yeah. And he looks back at you. He's like, English pale, Dad? Or,
yeah, exactly.
I just listened to that episode of Marisada. That sounds awesome.
but it's pretty rad. I mean, they're getting a practical, I guess kind of education almost in an applied version of what it is they're learning in school. They'll read stuff off for me. I'll leave my recipe sheets out, and my son especially will go and take those and start asking me questions about, if this says this many liters, how many gallons is that? Well, how many liters are in a gallon? And there's a lot of it. Now, you mentioned your kids crunching on grain and, sniffing hops. Have you been dick enough to let one of them chew a hop pellet?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. I like that you had to ask that question,
yeah,
knowing full well that I've been dicking up to
you. I didn't doubt it. I did the same thing.
Yeah.
I think Olive was 4 years old. So
I just told you I let my kids eat hot sauce. So.
Yeah, yeah. Funny story. We actually don't, we don't do the whole allowance thing. So our kids have to earn their money. So they can go and ask us to do extra special stuff on top of their already household chores. And so one of the ways that my kids can earn money, and it'll always work, is if they eat hot shit.
That's not.
It's the best. It's so funny though. And
you're paying your kids for your own enjoyment.
Oh, it's hilarious, and they know it though, and they're old enough to get that I'm doing it because it makes me laugh. And oh, dude, it's so funny. My son's, in his lifetime, he's probably made $100 eating hot stuff. So, anyways, that's beside the point.
What have we learned this episode?
Yeah.
Olive has her own beer glass, and Marshall pays his kids to get burnt with chemicals.
Listen, I'm not having them eat ghost peppers or anything like that. We're talking like pickled jalapenos, the least hot. But it's just funny.
That's how you tell the story.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I'm probably softening it up a little bit for the audience. But yeah, so that's where I'm at overall. I'm open-minded when it comes to exposure to alcohol for my kids. I love getting them involved in the brewing process, and because of some of the decisions that I've made in terms of the way that I brew and have incorporated my kids into brewing, I'm able to continue doing it without much stress on my wife and my family, and so it works out for me. And I guess that's where I'm at.
I had a period there where I couldn't go down to the garage without Molly or Kira asking what I was doing.
Oh yeah.
And if it was beer stuff, she would say, "Can I help?" Molly especially, but Kira as well later on. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That made me feel really, really good.
Yeah.
Usually it was something minor, just like, you can add the star sand to the bucket for me, but anything like that, especially because one of the reasons why I left my previous job is because I worked so damn much and had an odd schedule. So there would be entire weekends when I was working, and they would have family picnics and I wasn't able to be there. So even though we definitely took a financial compromise, changing careers. My life is so much better because I'm around my kids more, right?
Yeah,
Now, those moments though, then were so precious because it was just like, I want to do this brewing thing, and I guess I could have been that guy who I'm selling all my shit,
Yeah.
But what I did instead was, instead of making that me my alone time, I made it our time where I was just like, it like melted my heart, if these two kids would be like, can we come down? And I'm like, well, are they truly interested in weighing out hops with dad?
Yeah.
No, it's the second part. It's with dad.
Yeah.
This is dad's thing. I want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And that's just really cool.
I love
it's just
it.
really cool. So the teaching was secondary. It was just part of it. It was to give them a task.
Yeah.
But really, they don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we didn't hit too much on is, we talked a bit about our thoughts on alcohol in general around the kids, and then our brewing and what that takes. But we didn't hit too much on how, I guess specifically to us as Brülosophy and the time that this stuff takes. But so earlier today, I'm really open about this. My kids wear Brülosophy hats. They've got stickers in their rooms, all that kind of stuff. But my oldest one, Hazel, was asking me what I'm recording today and what the show's going to be about. And I tell her, whenever she asks me, I'll tell her what the general topic is that we're going to be talking about. And I told her that we're actually going to be recording our very first episode in a series about where we share our views, and what we're going to be talking about is drinking alcohol and brewing with kids, having kids as parents. And she looks at me and she goes, "That sounds like a show that I could be on." And I said, "Do you
awesome.
want?" Yeah, I said, "Would you?" So speaking of integrating the kids, Hazel sat down with me for a little bit of an interview, and I'd like to share that with you guys now. Well, seeing as this is a show on our thoughts on brewing and drinking alcoholic beverages while being parents, I brought on a very special guest with me, the one, the only Hazel Ray Schott, my oldest daughter. Hazel, how are you doing?
Good.
Is you a little shy to be on the radio here?
Yes.
Well, okay, so you don't have to be shy. We're just I won't even keep you for very long. But I'm wondering, how long do you remember that Dad's been brewing beer?
Ever since I was born.
Just your whole life, right?
Yeah.
You got to get up on the mic there. So ever since you were born, what do you think about the fact that I brew beer so often and write about it? And I mean, for you, it's a little bit different because I also have this business that I run, Brülosophy, and so I'm in here recording. And what are your thoughts on the whole brewing thing and beer?
Well, I mean, you are in here a lot, and and
Am I in here? Am I in here more than I'm in the garage? What do I do more, brew or work on Brülosophy stuff?
You definitely work on Brülosophy stuff more.
Yeah, but
you used to brew like every Sunday.
Yeah, I used to do it every week. Now I'm down to like twice a month, maybe. Huh? I brewed yesterday. But what? So for you, when you think about, I guess not just beer, but when you think, we have friends when Tim and Jersey come over and we're all drinking alcoholic beverages. You guys know that we're doing that. We're not hiding it from you or anything like that, are we?
No.
What do you think about it? Do you ever feel the urge to want to like sneak a drink?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't want to.
Do you have any thoughts about drinking in general or brewing? Is it something that you have?
I don't know.
It's just a non-issue for you, huh?
Yeah.
It's just a normal part of what we do, right? Do you I don't want to put thoughts in your head, but you are my daughter, and I know you pretty well. Do you enjoy when all of the neighborhood friends get together and we're having a good time?
Yeah.
And all the adults are always drinking, right? I mean, whenever we get together,
Yeah.
there's always whether it's mom making a cocktail or Jersey and me and Tim maybe having a beer or a bunch of beers, throwing darts and having a good time.
Oh yeah, but usually when it's really late at night and we go over, like at 4th of July, Mom usually won't drink because she wants to take us kids home. But sometimes when we go over early and it's like a summer night, she'll usually have like...
Yeah, sometimes you don't know Mom's drinking because she drinks it out of her big Bubba cup.
Yeah.
You think it might be water, but I've made the mistake of sipping on that thinking it was water in the past as well. But the point of this show is kind of just to share. The reason we're doing this episode is kind of just to share our thoughts on drinking. And the reason is because this isn't really the reason, but there are some people out there who view not just the brewing aspect, but drinking in general as being a really bad thing.
I know.
You know that? How do you know that? Where have you heard that from?
I don't really know. I feel like I just already knew it ever since I knew you started to brew beer.
Since you were born, because
Well, yeah.
do you think that just being around the brewing process and having 7 taps in your, do you think that you're more or less likely to treat alcohol responsibly?
I feel like I am, but I don't want to have it like right now.
No, that's a good thing, right? You don't want it right now. Now, at the same time, if you were to come out and ask me to sample or taste beer, you used to do that when you were a kid, when you were younger, and Olive still likes to. Do you see anything wrong with that? Or?
Well, she is 4 years younger than me, but not too much.
Yeah, she doesn't. It's not like we're giving her whole pints or anything. Like
No.
That. But
she only gets like 1 glass a month.
Yeah.
Or
and
like
by glass, we're talking
months.
about the
Like
smallest sampler.
Yeah.
But she enjoys it. And I guess a part of my philosophy is that if we were to, there's that experience where if we say don't do something, there's a part of you that wants to do it even more, even if you don't think that.
Exactly. That's what Olive does. Like, I tell her to put something away in my room, and she goes to she puts it away in my room. She puts it in my room. She just throws it on the floor though. And I keep telling her to put it in the correct spot. She just wants to keep putting it on the ground.
Oh, that girl. She's crazy. It's probably because she's drinking too much, huh? Oh, well, I think it's there a lot of us who are older, as old people, were raised in an era when it was common for parents to try to hide their drinking because they thought it was bad. And I just don't think that. I think it's really healthy. I think being able to kind of demonstrate for you guys and for all the neighborhood kids and all that stuff that you can drink and have a good time, but not be stupid. I mean, we get stupid, but we get fun stupid, not stupid. That
not like, let's go in the back of the truck for 2 miles.
Yeah, I'm never going to let you guys do that. Yeah. I don't even get in the truck when I've been drinking, but there's an element
scared.
of it. Yeah. Right. Well, and we don't want anybody to get hurt, and we also don't want to get in trouble. Right. And so we do the safest thing and just typically stay in the neighborhood. Yeah. But I do think it's neat that you guys get to witness and experience a kind of a different, more healthy version of that. I like to think it's healthy. There will be people out there who are listening to this who think it's totally what I'm doing is absolutely unhealthy and bad. Isn't that interesting? Any final words? Anything else you want to say about brewing and drinking and all that stuff in your family? What is your favorite drink of all time?
My favorite drink so far was when we had extra root beer thing for our
soda stream.
Yeah, and we made our own root beer.
It's still on tap.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, you can have
I
some
didn't
today.
know. And Olive said that she wanted some, and I said it was all out because you said when Aniston and Aiden came over, you said that we're just gonna use all of it. So I didn't think that we had any more.
I think there's still a bunch in there. Probably making my beer lines taste like root beer, but that's okay.
And the last time I had the root beer, it tasted like the aftertaste tasted the smallest bit like beer, and
it is root beer. After all.
And I told you, and you said, "Oh, it was just fine," and I still kept drinking, but it still tasted like root beer.
Yeah, it is. It tastes weird, like weird sugar-free root beer, but there's sugar in it.
Yeah,
that's what's weird. But I like beer better than root beer.
I like root beer better than beer.
All right, bud. I love you.
I love you too.
Thanks for coming on the show. So that's Hazel. She's my oldest. And like she said, I've been doing this thing since as far back as she can remember. I was in grad school when she was born and got back into homebrewing more heavily when she was about a year old. So it's just been a normal part of her life. And I feel like she's got some solid head on her shoulders when it comes to drinking and beer. Well, that brings us to the end of our first Brews Views episode. Please let us know what you think about it. You can leave a comment on social media, or you can leave us a review in the Apple Podcast or wherever it is you listen to podcasts. And if you have an idea for a topic that you'd like to hear us blow hard about, we'd love to hear it. Just email me, Marshall@Brülosophy.com. Malcolm, do you have any final words on drinking and brewing as a parent?
Find time, incorporate, and it's memories in themselves. One of my first videos of my child is Molly mashing in a beer. She could barely stand. She was using the little mash paddle almost to steady herself. I think I titled it like Molly the Masher. I show it to her today. And the first time I showed it to her, she thought it was Kira because she was too young to remember.
Yeah.
You know. So, like I said, they just, right before you did the interview with Hazel there, they just want to be around you.
That's it.
So, and if it takes some time, some responsibility, and gives your partner a break, there's ways you can do it.
Absolutely.
And just be safe about it. And I think you're building memories. It doesn't have to be, a chore to have the kids around. Just set up some safety barriers, some safety precautions, and then by all means brew with your kids.
Yep. Have some structure, have some rules, and enjoy your life. Well, don't forget to head over to Brülosophy.com to read up on all of the sciencey stuff we're up to. The Brülosophy Podcast is made possible by the generous support of our sponsors as well as all of our rad listeners. We seriously could not do this without you. Cheers to everyone who has subscribed and left a review of our show. It makes a huge difference. If you haven't yet, please consider doing so. Head over to Brülosophy.com/support to view a list of ways you can easily help us to continue producing this podcast. If you want a reward for your support, visit Patreon.com/Brülosophy. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Brülosophy Podcast. Until then, think beer.
Start off the morning with some hot tea, lemon and honey, cause it suits my bro. Put some herb in the bowl, yeah, it's homegrown. Ain't gotta go through the middleman no more.